All right, so we're 2 days, I think. No, what are we, 3 days after the storm? Three. 3 days after the storm. And in this video, I mean, we got this tree laying over the freaking boat, but I wanted to make this video about how to tie your boats up. Honestly, these videos help me keep my sanity, right? So we prepped these boats in a specific way, and it actually worked. There's boats all over the place. If you look behind me here, there's one that's sunk, and you're gonna see all kinds of footage in Cape Coral, Pine Island, Malachet, Sanibel. There's boats everywhere. There's boats freaking everywhere. And a lot of people did actually tie their boats up correctly, but if the boat was large enough, it pulled the pilings right out of the mud. If your boats were smaller and you're wondering for the next storm, what is a way that actually worked? I'm gonna show you in this video how to tie your boat up and have it actually stay. Maybe it worked for me, so stay tuned. All right, so let me give you a view here of what occurred. I'm gonna stand back here because you'll be able to see everything a little better. So during hurricane, let me widen it up for you. So during the hurricane, the first thing we did was we took down the canopies. We had a crew come out and remove those. Then we took everything in from the dock except the dock boxes. One of them's there, one of them's gone. And this table over here. And to be honest with you, it was just laziness. We kind of ran out of room in the garages, and we just ran out of room. So we left the dock boxes out here, and what I did was I tied them up right in here. This gazebo from Sam's Club, or BJ's, actually stayed, and it is bolted into the dock on all four legs. I removed the cutting board here. I tried to remove anything that would catch wind, but stupidly I tied the two dock boxes and this serving table thing right in here. We took the Traeger inside, but I just ran out of motivation and said, screw it. Well, they're gone. So anything you can bring in, bring in. But what I really want to show you is how I tied these boats up, because they were floating. I'll show you some footage. They were apparently floating. They got blasted by wind and water in both directions. The water was up to the top of the pilings. So all this electrical service was underwater, but the water was right up here to the top of the pilings, and the boats stayed. Just incredible. So let me show you what I did. The first thing I did was I ratchet strapped the lift in all four corners, and I think you really do need some heavy duty ratchet straps. Dock lines would just not do this. So in my future hurricane kit, I'll have dedicated ratchet straps for both lifts. This was a smaller one. These are smaller ones, Rhino straps that I pulled out of my truck at the last minute. But this style of hook worked really well. This is more of an industrial truckers type of tie down. And what I did was wrap them around, hook them semi-tight, and then I went around and I tightened up each corner until all four corners were super tight and the lift was not moving at all. And I did that for both lifts. Got the lift really tight. Then with my dock lines, I went ahead and tied into each cleat and either wrapped the piling or hooked it into the cleat. Where possible, I wrapped the piling. That's a little bit safer. And I made these tight. After the storm, and at the end of the video here, I'll show you what these boats experienced. After the storm, they're loose, but they were super tight. Midship down to the cleat in this case, and bow here to the piling. This one I was able to get 3. Over here I only had 2 because I just ran out of dock line. There was one from this front cleat here, bow cleat, to the piling there, and then of course right there in the back. And my thought was that I would stabilize the boat over the lift because I had already stabilized the lift to the pilings, right? I did the same thing to the flats boat in a little bit different way. Like I said, I was running out of dock lines, and this boat doesn't have cleats on the corners. It's only midship. So I took lines off of that center cleat, and I did not have a long enough line to wrap around the piling. I would have if I had a long enough line, but I installed these cleats and they are really in there, and clearly they held. I ran out of dock line. I'm looking for anything. This is some webbing that I had. So I used webbing to secure the other side. And then up here, because there's only a bow cleat, I did one line across the boat and torqued it down on these cleats. And then I took another line that I've removed because I had to get some dock lines. This boat right here was slapping up against, I'll show you a picture, it was slapping up against here, and if the tide came in, it would have lifted up into my motor. So we had to get that boat out of here, and I needed dock lines fast, so I pulled these off. But this was a longer line, and I was able to tie it to that cleat, that piling, up through this cleat to this piling, and it worked. We were in the house up there watching these boats float. It looked like the flats boat had gone back about 2 feet, and then it came forward about 2 feet, but it essentially landed right on the lift. This boat looked like it came forward quite a bit. It's just really hard to tell where the boats were, but they always stayed in the slip. And based on the way they landed back on the lift bunks, they didn't move much. The water was up to here. I could just barely see these piling caps from the house, and they're all about the same height. So water was up to the top of the piling caps. So you can see the both boats were clearly floating. They definitely floated up off the lift because that lift didn't move. Number one, it doesn't float. But my point is, if I did this again, I would absolutely tie the boat to the piling and not the boat to the lift, because this boat down here was tied to the lift also. And I didn't know if that was a good idea or not, but I don't think it was, because when my boats were floating, that boat, the water was coming up. It didn't penetrate the it didn't crust the transom there, but his boat could not float up off his lift. So this is my recommendation in the future. Make sure the lift doesn't move around. Tie your boats to the piling so they can move around a little, but stay in their place, stay in their lane. It worked really well. Anyway, hope this video helps somebody someday. Hope you never have to go through this, but if you're looking for some way that actually worked, proven to work, that's the technique that I used. Stay tuned here, I'll show you a little footage from the height of the storm as far as the flooding goes. It does seem to be getting worse. It keeps coming up. It's coming up slowly, but it keeps coming up. Shut the generator off because I don't want it to go underwater. The water is up around the generator, but I did just shut it off. Water is likely in the garage. Water is clearly all the way up to the house. Let's see. It is level with the AC pad. Boats are floating, but it's just a freaking lake.